All right, everyone, it's 10 o'clock, time to start the session. Let me know, everyone, good morning, first of all, and let me know if you are able to hear me clearly. We'll let other people join, and I think a lot of people are still joining because I think people will keep on joining for the next 5-10 minutes, but we should get started on time for an honor everyone who has joined even before time. So I hope I'm audible. So welcome everyone, first of all, to India Product Week. Good to see all of you and good to see a lot of familiar names in the chat window. I'll firstly quickly introduce you a little bit to this week, amazing week that we have planned. Before that, a quick bit about me. As most of you would know, my name is Manav. I'm the founder and CEO of Insaid. I'll be hosting today's session. I'll be the moderator for today's session, rather. And different sessions and throughout this week, different moderators will be doing the moderation, and we have different speakers as well. So let me quickly brief you a little bit about what is the vision of India Product Week. As a lot of you are learning product management and as a lot of you are looking to enter product management, what we thought is that a lot of time when we talk about product management, we are usually talking about the FANG companies, which is now called the manga companies, right? And we don't pay a lot of attention to products that are coming out of India. So whenever you ask someone that where do you want to work, everybody says that I want to be a product manager at Google or Facebook or Amazon or something of that sort. But there are great opportunities coming out of India. And B was that since a lot of you are looking to enter product management and a lot of you are already product managers, what we have tried to do here in India Product Week is brought together a spectrum of speakers from different product leaders from different companies to talk to you about what product management is. And this is the first time when any event of this sort is taking place in India, wherein a bunch of speakers are coming together on a common platform for one full week to talk about product management and different aspects of creating world-class products. So that's a little bit about India Product Week and how we conceptualize this product this week. And what we were very conscientious about is doing a whole spectrum of product companies here. So for example, you would see that you have a very established name like, let's say, Flipkart, which has produced its recent generation of product managers in India. Then you have, other companies like Spinny. You would see those PV Sindhu ads these days. So since Shailendra works in Spinny, he is the opening speaker. You have, and what we also try to do is not only limit product management to only a certain industry. So you see something like Bounce, which is doing phenomenal work in scooters and making scooters and producing electric scooters. We have Frazo, which has just raised a Mumbai-based startup, which has just raised a massive $50 million funding, wherein they take it's a farm to fork model. So everything which is produced in farms, within 18 hours, you are served on your plate. Plus, we have established names like PhonePe and Byju's, which are some of the multi-billion-dollar startups today. And then we wanted to add a little technical flavor to the event as well. And we have one product manager from Red Hat as well. So what we have tried to do is keep a very good mix of product management in very large established companies and product management in mid-sized companies and product management in companies like Frazo, which are just coming and establishing themselves. So that's how that's how this week has been planned, and that's one way in which what we have tried to do this week is that also not limit this week to only just career discussions or a certain aspect of product management, but keep the week very holistic. For example, today, the opening session is about learn product management through first principles. And I think this session, I will also ask Shailendra that why session is very important. But this session is important because product management, even when you are switching from one industry to another industry, I'm not even talking about companies, it looks very different across industries, it looks very different across companies, but yet there are certain clear foundations that you follow, whether you switch companies or whether you switch industries, and we'll talk about that. Tomorrow, we have another speaker who's very popular in the product management world. Some of you would already know Shravan Tikku. He is a principal product manager at Byju's. He'll talk about how to break into product management. Third session is wartime product manager. That usually product manager is supposed to be a job wherein you are working on various things, but when do you do firefighting, and how do you do firefighting as a product manager? Learning that aspect is something that if you get to know this is something that is going to definitely help you as you step in this journey forward. Next is a very important aspect of product management, that something a lot of time we don't focus on. A lot of time we are focused on the tools, on the concepts, but innovation and creativity, which has been the fundamental part about product management. We'll cover that, and we have Director of Product Management Movin Chen who will talk about that. And something which is something which is a lot of you would be targeting, getting into startup companies. Startups today are generating a lot of amazing opportunities, both in terms of the roles and in terms of the wealth creation that they're doing. If you're looking for product management in startup, it is very, very different from product management in established companies like Flipkart, Google, etc. So what does it look like? Then we'll also talk about, and we have Sneha Singh, who heads product management at Frazo. She'll talk about this. Then we'll talk about product management in world of open source. This will be slightly technical topic. So this will be unlike the other topics that we have, we are going to cover. So this will be like 180-degree opposite of what we'll cover in a session like this, which is innovation and creativity, in which we'll talk about product management in the world of open source and what are the opportunities and how to harness those opportunities. And why this is very important is that as a product manager, you do not necessarily need to always build proprietary solutions. You can leverage and use something as a base and then build your products. And that's what the session is going to be about. And then the end, we'll have a very interesting session, which is making products for a billion people, in which Pawan Kashyap, who's currently working on vernacular products in Flipkart, which is customizing Flipkart to, let's say, languages in Bangla or Tamil or Telugu, etc., etc. So how do you do this, customization for a billion people, so that irrespective of whether somebody is literate, whether somebody is illiterate, whether somebody can speak English or not, you are giving them a world-class product experience? That's what we are, going to cover in the entire week. Now, the way these sessions will be organized is that we'll have a core topic, which is 30 minutes of what the speaker is going to talk about, and then we'll open the floor for Q&A, because I'm sure a lot of you would have questions. So if you whatever questions you would have, after some time we'll close the chat window and we will open the Q&A window, so you can post your questions in the Q&A window. And if your questions, and what I'll try to do is try to pick the questions which are most relevant for the session, because a lot of sessions are planned. So even if your question does not get answered, even when we are trying to, or the speaker is trying to answer somebody's question, the whole idea is that you also benefit from the answers, right? So please do not feel bad that my question has not been answered, because as you would know that there are hundreds of people joining in live right now. So we will try to ensure that all the questions are answered across 7 sessions, but I will try to pick the questions which are the most frequent and which are the most relevant to the session. Yeah. A quick heads up, everyone. This session is also being, as all of you are here on Zoom. But if you want to share this session with anyone, you can also share this with anyone on YouTube. This is also being streamed live right now on YouTube. So you can also go there, and in case we run out of session capacity, you would be able to watch the session on YouTube. You just search Insaid and you will be able to get the YouTube link as well, right? So let's get started, everyone. And firstly, let's extend a warm welcome to Shailendra. Can we give a warm welcome to Shailendra in the chat window? And a quick bit about Shailendra. First of all, Shailendra, thank you so much for taking out the time to be with us on this Sunday morning. You are the headline speaker, and the reason we believe is that today's session is very important is that even before you do anything else in product management, the first principles are very, very important, and we are looking forward to see, learn a little bit about that. And before we get there, I would want you to quickly introduce yourself and talk about some of your stints. You have been in product management even before most of us had heard about product management. And even in fact, you entered product management at a time when a lot of people, when you would be explaining what product management, they would simply not understand what product management is, right? Almost a decade back. So welcome, heartiest welcome to you, and thank you for joining. And over to you. If you can quickly introduce yourself and your journey into product management, that would be fantastic.
Sure, Manvinder. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. If you can allow me to share my screen, and
Sure.
some of that is already there on the slides. Just a second. Yeah. I hope the slide is visible now.
It is, Shailendra.
Okay. So thank you, Insaid, and thank you, Manav, for this wonderful initiatives, I would say, because as you said, right, when I entered ISB in 2010, and when I entered ISB, I had no idea.
Shailendra, your voice has gone down. No, we can't hear you. Can you speak a little bit? Testing. We could hear you earlier, but now we are not able to hear you. We can't hear you. Have you changed some settings? Because earlier we were able to hear you, but right now we are not able to hear you. Or no voice. Or do you have a laptop speaker? Because I think we are not right now not able to hear you. It may be because of the Bluetooth, as I think somebody is writing. Sometimes it's because of the Bluetooth issue. So if you have a laptop with a, like I always prefer in these sessions using the laptop mic. Okay, you have a, can you put a little closer to the speaker, a little closer to yours?
Is it better now?
Yeah, absolutely perfect now.
Okay, I just replugged, the tooth. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's start, Shailendra.
Yeah, I think maybe when I started sharing the screen, something went wrong. I'll start sharing it again.
Sure.
Yeah. I hope that's not the issue. Is it still audible?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah, I think as most of the things in India, right, you restart something and then it starts working. Like
Yeah.
restart or anything. So yeah, thank you so much, Manav, and sorry for that hiccup. But we'll get it started straight away. And I was saying that when I joined ISB in 2010, I had no idea what product management is. And in fact, I wanted to get into brand management, but something happened, and then I got to know that product management is something which I can work on. And honestly, there were only a couple of companies which were there for product management back then, which was like Make My Trip, InfoEdge was there, which is Naukri, Google, Yahoo. These were the only companies. Now, when I check, I was actually checking ISB's website. There were like 270 odd of more than that companies. And in fact, I'm in the panel of, in the admission panel for ISB incoming class also. And I have seen that trend that originally, when early in 2010, 11, 12, most of the people, 70-80% people would be for consulting roles. They would ask for consulting roles. Now the trend has completely reversed to product management. And I see a lot of people, young people, like 2-3 years into a tech company, and they want to get into product management. They have no idea what product manager is, but they just feel that it's very glamorous, and the mini CEO tag, etc. People get a lot into that. So what I would try to do is just break it down, simplify what product management is, and how can you apply product management thinking when you move from company to company. Because uh, I'll just skip one slide and I'll show you this, my journey. So the idea here is, you can look at the list of companies. The idea here is to tell you that, whenever I moved to a different organization, it was in a completely new industry. So from travel to hyperlocal to real estate to life insurance, now, used car selling. And each of the companies when I had joined, I had not even interacted with the data industry. For example, when I joined Max Life, I did not own a life insurance on my own. When I joined Make My Trip, and I was given to handle hotels business on mobile. And that time, I did not even own a smartphone. I owned a Nokia device, and I told my senior that, hey, I don't understand how mobile works, how smartphone works, but they're like, nobody knows actually, and so now you go and figure out. And that is the basis of, that what forced me in a way to think about product management or things from a first principle basis. And what I would do here today is actually not just give a theoretical gyan, which you can find anywhere, but actually take you through a practical case study. I have chosen one of the company's Magic Bricks, where I actually created something which even today stands as one of the most innovative things. It may not have been successful as a commercial or a revenue generating concept, but was way ahead of its time, and I'm really really proud of that product. So I would just take time to go through that. Before that, as a good product manager, you all should also know your audience. I actually don't know the audience much because we are in this online space, and it won't be practically possible to go through the room. But for others who don't know me, and this is apart from what you can find on the LinkedIn. This is me. All in pictures. I won't say anything about it. But you can guess some of the things which I'm writing about is, the left brain and right brain, because I have this passion for writing. You can see a pen and paper here, and the book cover right on the right hand side, which is a book which I have released on Amazon last year. I took advantage of the pandemic and working from home environment, so I could just put it down. I'm a huge cricket follower. These are the two lovely ladies in my life, and I can move on. So you know so starting with the thumb rules of new product development, because as I said, most of the organizations you can see here, I was fortunate enough to, even if I was working for Make My Trip kind of organization, which was kind of established by then, I was asked to work on something which is very very innovative, which is very very new. So product management, typically you can divide into either 0 to 1, which is creating something from the scratch, or you are 90 to 100, people say, or 1 to 100, whatever you say, which is actually incremental things. I was fortunate enough that almost 70-80% of my work has been into 0 to 1 kind of products. And what I've tried to do is I'm trying to just dumb it down to what are the thumb rules. So basics are that nothing is obvious. You have to question everything. If you start taking things for granted, if you start talking to your seniors and people like veterans, when I was in Max Life Insurance, and if you would ask somebody who is actually spent his life in insurance, they will tell you hundreds of things, that insurance cannot be sold online, insurance can only be sold, it is not bought, like things like that, because people have come up with their biases and things. If you start buying into those, you will never be able to come up with an innovative product. And that is what I'm saying, that nothing is obvious. You need to question everything, even if it is coming from a veteran, which is 20-30 years. In fact, more the experienced person is, I actually take that advice with a pinch of salt, because things are changing dramatically, and you cannot just take anything which would have worked or might not have worked 10, 15 years back. Then the second point is start with the end goal and not the constraint, because if you start putting the constraints first, you will never be able to achieve the end state. So you start with the end goal, whatever is the end goal, and not the constraints. Third is, if, as I mentioned before, if something has never been tried before, that doesn't mean it will not work. You have to keep on trying. And finally, thinking from the first principles. Now, what is first principle thinking? I would have loved if it was a live audience and I would have asked this question. What do you think is a difference? Like yesterday, I was thinking, how do you explain this to somebody? I think most of you guys would be maths or engineers who would have done mathematics in +2. They would understand what first principle, differentiation by first principle, integration by first principle, etc. Right? But for somebody like a layman, if you ask somebody what is the difference between a cook and a chef, and you think in your head, cook is actually somebody who follows a recipe, who would just, we are all cooks, by the way. In the pandemic, we have all learned cooking. Just go to YouTube, find something, and you just carry on the steps. A chef, on the other hand, is actually somebody who understands food flavor by first principles. He understands what a citrus food can do, how what is the flavor of anything, any salt, any spice or anything which add, what two spices can work together and not, etc. Which thing can be fried, which cannot be fried, which can be boiled, etc. Whereas a cook can only follow a recipe. That is the difference between thinking with first principles versus working by analogy. So cook will always work through analogy. He will actually look at a recipe, and most of the product managers actually, right? They will just, if you give them a problem, they will say, "Oh, has this ever been done anywhere else in the world, or has it ever been done in a similar industry?" And they will just copy that idea from there and put it here. It might work for some cases, but it will never work for sure if you are forced to think of an innovation or think of something which has never been done before, or you have never done before. That is what a chef is. That is what a master chef is. That is the idea of thinking by first principles. you know uh, and that was idea by a novice, and this gentleman is not a novice. I hope everybody would know Elon Musk. This is a very popular YouTube clip. I won't play it because of paucity of time, but in this clip also he's tried to explain what the idea of first principle is, because all his companies, if you observe, they were like never thought about before, right? And if he started working on the ideas which other companies or other things have are there, he would never have reached the point where he reached. So in by definition, a first principle is a basic or a foundational proposition that cannot be deduced from any other proposition or assumption. That's like the basic truth, which we need to understand. So the first, the way I have put like a template here to apply a first principle thinking is, if whenever you get into a scenario or a product or an industry where you have to come up with something, this is what you do. You understand the current state, completely. What is the current state? And you start understanding what is the desired state. Like, where do you want to be? Like, these are the two states, right? कहाँ पर हो आप और कहाँ जाना है? Then start asking why. And this is a very popular, the why ladder theory, or the peel the onion. People say that you ask 5 to 7 whys about that thing, and I'll explain you with examples. How do you do that? And then you reach to the, by the third or the fourth or the fifth question, you will reach to the root cause of why this certain thing is happening. Then you put a hypothesis around this, that if this is happening, we can actually change this by doing this. Then you iterate and keep on iterating, until you either reject the hypothesis or that is validated. So that is in a nutshell the template. Very simple, and I will explain how it will go about it. What I'll do is, from my Magic Bricks experience, I'm sure many of you would have bought a house, or at least rented a house, or gone for a home visit. It is just a case study around that, and I'll just explain what the problem was, the current state, and what was the desired state. The current state was, for people who are trying to buy a house, there are redundant, tiring, and unuseful site visits. Any of you who would have actually gone to buy a house, maybe in Delhi, I am from Delhi NCR, I'm more familiar with this. So you go to Taj Expressway or Noida Extension or far-flung areas like dusty roads in hot, humid conditions. You just travel that far to see a sample house ready. That obviously, because it takes time, it takes a lot of effort, and then you reach there and you don't even maybe at a lot of times that is closed, etc. So that is the current state. That what was the desired state? The desired state was you get to experience the home property, a home or the property with minimum hassle, and you have the as a user you have the flexibility to experience this at your own comfort. So those were the that is the desired state. This is the current state, and that's the desired state. Now you start peeling the onion. So when I said this is redundant, tiring, and unuseful site visits, you start asking questions. Why do customers go for unnecessary site visits? And then the answer will come like, because they don't get the relevant information on the site or the app. Then you ask, why don't they get relevant information? This is the peeling the onion, right? Because the website or the app is not sufficient to provide the necessary experience. Then you ask, why the app is not sufficient? Because the technology required to provide the experience is expensive, and it might require some hardware as well. And this is where we stop, because this is the root problem, because the technology is expensive. And I'm talking about 2015, so you should take it with a pinch of salt. Technology has evolved over since then, but you just imagine you were in 2014, 15, and it requires hardware as well. Okay, so this is one layer. I'll give you another example. I also mentioned that the site visits are painful. So why are site visits painful? Because the customers have to visit far-flung areas, and most of the time sample flats are not even ready. Now you break it down. Why visiting far-flung areas is a problem? Why is it even a problem? Because customers have to invest a lot of time, because there is weather, traffic, etc. is a concern. So you pause there. Okay, that's the practical problem, that you don't want to travel far-flung areas. If the solution, I'm not moving to the solution, but I'm just refraining from solutioning. But that is where you stop. And then on the other hand, you say, why simple flats not ready is a problem? Because customers actually want to have a real feel of the house, because it's not like an iPhone which you can buy without even touching it. You actually experience the house. Now, this is just an example.
Shailendra, your voice has gone down a little bit. Can you come a little closer? Yeah, can you speak a little? No, again, it is gone. I think you need to reconnect the headphones.
I hope it is better.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So, that is where you stop, where you say that, we have got to the root of the problems, and, there can be multiple layers of that problem. And then you start thinking, or you start summarizing the problem statement. So, we summarize the problem statement that, the experience is of renting or buying is very complex. It involves a lot of time. People have to visit a lot of places. That is the problem. It takes a lot of time. And then you come up with a solution. And the solution which we figure out that through technology, a lot of this can be solved. But because the technology involves a bit of hardware as well, we might not be able to give it to the customers on an app. We might need to bring people to a place where they can come and see the property. And those things can be like a mall or an airport, or things where public accessible place, air conditioned places where they don't have to travel too far. So there you start moving to the solution bit. I won't go into the nitty gritties of how we arrived at, but eventually what we came up with was a concept of an experience center, and the experience center was like a physical unit which had hardware. There was a lot of fabrication, and then was obviously the core was the software. And the idea was, it is not downloadable product, but it is something where people can travel to. We established these in multiple malls across the city or airports, where people can just walk in and get a glimpse of the property through AR and VR technologies, because those things cannot be given to users on an app, because it requires certain hardware like Oculus and stuff. So we can just deploy it there. That was the concept which we came up with. And I will go deep into explaining at least the software bit, because there were a lot of complexities on the hardware and fabrication as well. But because of paucity of time, I will just explain how the first principle thinking we deployed when creating this software. If you see closely on the screen, there's a big 65-inch big huge screen there. There are small buckets or small screens, 22-inch screens which are there, and stuff like that. So I'll just explain one of these one by one. So for example, designing this huge 65-inch screen, again, employed a lot of first principle thinking. For example, if you were, most of you might also be UX designers or designers or product managers. When we get to design for a small mobile, like 90% of the traffic has now moved to mobile. And I remember when I was with Make My Trip, I used to tell this to my designers. They were like, I can design this for a desktop, but for mobile, because it's a smaller form factor, it will become very difficult. Here, on the other hand, it was completely the other way. You have like 65-inch screen, huge space. You have no problem of form factors. But then how do you design? Because there was no literature available for designing for a smart TV, because smart TV itself was a new concept. Right? Height was a factor, by the way, because for mobile, for example, if you're holding a mobile on your in your hand, there's a lot of literature and a lot of research available saying that the position of CTA should be here, there, because people have done research about it, experienced people. For a TV, and where people, so person is supposed to be standing and working, like there was no research available, so you had to do it literally on your own. So what? And I'll tell you, we actually put a 65-inch screen in our boardroom in Magic Wiz office, and we actually started observing people. We just asked people to come there and interact with. We created some mock-ups, and we realized that height was a factor, not the thumb but height. And we imagined that the average height will be 5 feet 2 inch, and so most of the CTAs have to be at a comfortable height. It cannot be like at the top of the screen, because many people will not be able to access those CTAs. It's a very different concept, but again, we are thinking from first principle. We're not just copying that somebody else has done it like that. Mobile पे ऐसे होता है, desktop पे ऐसे होता है, तो just do it like this. That is not the norm. You're thinking from first principle. Then there is this additional thing of this thing, this like a wedge which you see there, right? So if somebody is standing here, you can actually imagine that there is a 2-3 feet distance between him and the screen. So you also put those things into account. So all of these are, I'm just trying to tell you that we were just trying to observe people fundamentally, how are they interacting with that screen, and only then we started sketching the screen. And we had to avoid the temptation to fill the large screen, because if you get a 65-inch screen, the idea can be that just fill everything there, but that we had to resist the temptation. As I said, we this was set up on the ground floor of, if you would have seen the Times of India office in Noida Sector 16, it's a huge office, and the ground floor, we just put it there, and hundreds of people come there. So we just put it there, and people were just testing it out. And some of the things which we observed from the user testing is what I'll tell you. The thing which I observed was, if this is a flat screen, it has a very poor affordance of touchability, right? Because typically people associate a flat screen, vertically mounted screen, with a like a billboard or something which you don't touch. And because we were observing people, they were just coming there, but they were not playing with it, they were not touching it, and because they felt that this is just a screen which they have to just see. And the way we tried to solve it was, either you do there were two ways. Either you display it at an angle, because then it gives like a feeling of an ATM machine, because that ATM machine is a slant thing where you're supposed to type something. Now all this, whatever I'm saying, these were all hypotheses. Now I can say in hindsight it all worked, because I know the data, it worked. But when you were thinking, you were trying to hypothesize that what can work, then we start maybe place at an angle, or maybe prompt the screen with some keywords that you have to touch. So we did actually, we couldn't do the first one because the structure was already fixed. It had to be a vertical screen, it could not incline that. But what we did was something like this. So with the home screen looked something like this, which had a huge hand impression there, right? And it's not a GIF here right now, but it actually was an animation. So like it felt like a hand is there, and this ripple effect was there. So intuitively, somebody, like if you see a hand there, and UX people in the room can vouch for it, you will typically go and put your hand there, because that is what intuitively you will feel like, and that has started happening. People started coming and just putting their hand there, and we also wrote actually, place your hand to get started. But even without doing that, people were tempted to go and just touch the screen, and the screen would come alive, and you will start playing that screen. And you have to communicate what it is, because a lot of times people were very hesitant of interacting with that huge machine or huge thing, because people are like, I don't know what it is going to do for us. So you just put upfront that there are these 4 steps. you have to do. You have to search, you have to shortlist, you have to compare, and then get a activity report card. So you just put it there very very blatantly, because it is not something which people are used to be doing, right? It's not something which you have developed for, it's not a regular app or a regular website which you have developed. You have developed something new, so people are not used to it. You have to explain it as is. You just dumb it down. We intentionally dumbed it down to the level that it becomes very easy for somebody to just drag and shortlist things, etc. You don't have to overcomplicate things, because it's a very new thing which you have developed. You don't have to overcomplicate a lot of things. A few points on prototyping in a non-software product, because that was my first instance of actually working with a non-software product, and a lot of you might actually end up working with, say, a Google Glass or a watch or something which will actually be a hardware related product, right? So you also need to understand, again, using the first principle, then how do you actually prototype and test out those hardware kind of products. So first of all, it's very difficult, because unlike software, you have to actually do it. It involves a lot of effort and time, but you have to be very hands-on with the development effort. More like the normal stand-ups you have for your software development. What I did was, I actually also went to the floor, like the factory where this was getting developed. Not every day, but every once a week. It was like mostly like my catch up with the developers. Those were not developers; those were workers who were working on that machine. I have some pictures which I can show you like this. So this is like the raw wireframe equivalent of that thing, right? Which we call for software. One interesting bit I would say was, for example, when I was there, I saw that this guy who was standing here, the height above his head was only about a feet, and I could imagine that when this whole thing will come up, it will become very claustrophobic, because if 2-3 people are standing there and the roof is not too high, it will become claustrophobic. So what I said was, just increase this height by 1 feet more. I could do this because I was there at that point when the wireframes sort of were getting developed, and I could tell them, because they still had this time. They still said that this is rework, as the developers say, but they did it because they just have to weld these and add one thing, and then now in the second picture you can see that the height is increased. But I could do this because I was very hands-on with the product. I was there when the development, so to say, was happening. So I'm just trying to tell you that most of the things which happen for a software product might also be replicated for a non-software product. You just have to apply basic principles, basic thinking. You don't have to copy everything there, but put the why do we even do a daily stand-up? Because so that if there is any deviance, you are there at that point in time as a product manager, but a course corrected. That is the first principle thinking, that that is the logic. It is not a ceremony that everybody has to be there, like ऐसा करना ही है हर रोज आपको सुबह stand up करना, but you have to understand what is the logic of that. And it's beautifully explained here that it does not matter what kind of product you're working on. Even if it is a home construction you are getting done for your house, which I am getting done by the way. So you have to be very hands-on with how the work is happening, and you have to be there on the ground. Yeah, so I was just telling you that with the software development, you actually do things with colors and palettes, etc. There we were actually looking at the texture also. The surface which will be there. Should it be slippery? Should it not be slippery? Because people will actually walk on it, and you have to think about cleaning also. If water will fall down, will it corrupt the wires? What if short circuit happens? So you are now thinking about a lot of other things which typically as a software developer or a software product manager you will not think about. But again, if you apply basic principles, then all of this will start making a lot of sense. And these are the way it grew from wireframe to visual design to UAT to final product, and eventually the product came alive. So I'll just want to play this so that you get a sense of how this product, and Manav, if you can tell me if the voice is coming through.
Yeah, it is.
right property involves a lot of search and decision making. What if we can make it easier and actually turn it into an experience? Magic Bricks is here with a new cutting edge technology which will change the way people do property search. The entire Magic Bricks Experience Center is divided into 4 sections. It all starts with this huge 65-inch display panel in which a user can search, shortlist, compare, and finally get an activity report. And it all starts with a simple touch. A user is taken to the homepage of Magic Bricks Experience Center, where he can either search for a particular locality or builder or project. Suppose a user is in Bangalore and he is interested in HSR layout and he has a preference for 3 BHK. He can obviously change the budget range and then he searches. He's taken to a page which is basically a listing of properties. He can go through the details of the properties in this left panel. For example, locality rating, price bifurcation. Now, if suppose a person is interested in this property and if he wants to shortlist this property, he can basically drag it down and the property will come into his bucket. Suppose a user wants to compare the 2 shortlisted properties against a set of attributes which are listed here. For example, if he is interested to see how many hospitals are there in the vicinity of these projects. And similarly, he can keep on liking and giving thumbs up or smiles to the properties against each of these attributes. And finally, he is taken to his activity report, which basically tells him which is the number 1 property against the likes which he has given. And now is where the magic card comes into play. This is a RFID card reader by a simple touch, and the list of shortlisted properties will move into this RFID card. And from here on, he can move on to the next steps, which is the VR and the hologram sections. This is the 360-degree virtual reality zone in which a user can virtually walk through your property even without visiting that property. The way it works is the user will come here with the magic card from the previous screen. This magic card already has the shortlisted properties. He simply needs to tap in this card here and the list of shortlisted properties will come up here, in which he can choose one. The user simply needs to wear this headset and then start taking a tour of your property even without visiting that property. It almost feels that the user has reached that property even while he is sitting in an airport or in a mall. This is the 3D hologram section in which your project can be showcased in its entire glory. The flow is the same. User carries this magic card, taps onto the screen, selects one project and starts experiencing your project in a floating scale model. The beauty of this is it can showcase your project, a part of your project or even a floor plan in a physical scale model but which is digital. Continuing with the seamless user journey, we bring to you the next zone, which is the Great Wall of Magic. This is a huge 75-inch 4K display panel in which you can showcase your video walkthroughs or any other advertisement of your choice. Aided by innovation at every step, we welcome all of you on board to experience real estate the new age way at the Magic Bricks Experience Center.
I must tell you, this is so impressive, right? And this is like the highlight of today's session. I think everybody would have totally loved this, Shailendra. You need to replug your speaker, I think. And this like really excited us that, you know, we can, the question is, I will ask those questions, but the first question that is coming to my mind is this is like hardware product, software product, virtual reality, and how did you do it? And how do you, and somebody had asked a very beautiful question, how do you set a timeline for this? Because this can take forever.
Yeah. I hope I'm audible now, right?
Yes, yeah. You are.
So you're right. This, first of all, I think a lot of credit must go to the management and the CEOs and everybody, because you need to have a vision. Because most of the times I've seen in smaller startups, etc., that if you come up with such a audacious kind of project, which has very low chances of success plus a lot of investment, you need to have very strong vision and conviction that it can work, and it can show through your passion, through your willingness, and through your understanding of the. As I said, I explained to the CEO that these are the problems which exist, and this is how I'm thinking. And he was, he was happy to give me that opportunity. And obviously, and I'm not even saying that it was a smooth journey, that we just did it in one go. It had a lot of iterations. I would say it took us almost 5-6 months to get it out from concept to final out delivery. And but and it took a lot of, like, we had dedicated project managers in my team, and we were working day in day out to. And it was not just this, we also had to sell this to the. And you could see in this video was basically meant for the developers, so through which whom we were trying to pitch, that I. And this was my idea, that because when our BD, the sales guys, were going to sell this to the, because how would you get revenue? MagicBricks doesn't charge the customers for its these things, right? They will charge the developers or the real estate agents. So they were not able to sell it because they were just selling it like a inventory to the. But this was a new concept, so I said, let me just be the hero here and just put a, like, do a shoot, do a video, and you have these videos, and just go out. So when you're thinking like a product like that, this is where the concept of mini CEOs come in, right? You're not limited to just thinking that this was an asset I've created it, now just go ahead and do it whatever you want to do to the sales team or anybody. Like typically in a B2B product, you are thinking like, how do you scale it? How do you grow it fast? How do you make it, like, we deployed 6, 7, 8 units, how do you make it 100? How do you get the revenue? Because we thought that if you could get enough revenue from this, it can self-service, self-finance itself, right? You don't have to ask for the management every time. And because every such unit costed us almost 25 lakh rupees, and it was a huge sum. Plus the variable cost, which is you put it in a mall or an airport, that will cost us some 2-3 lakh rupees per month as the rent. So you have to make it work. So you were also thinking like a business guy, that how do you make it work? Plus your whole customer empathy thinking, UX is obviously there as a product manager, but you're also thinking on those lines to make it. So to summarize, I just said one this slide, and then we can open up for question answer, which is just summarize the lessons, that whenever you're faced with a completely new proposition, don't look for analogical solutions. Think from first principles, go to the root, the why ladder. You live the problem, you replicate the situation, be very hands on with the solution, iterate very fast, and don't fall in love with the solution कि ये हो गया तो अब यही करना है. And you have to enjoy the process, not just the end, because honestly, this wasn't like the most successful, financially successful product I have ever built, but definitely the most satisfying product as a product manager. And I must thank the team there also, to that I could get this opportunity, because not many people will get this in the lifetime, to lay their hands in such a ambitious project. And you learn a lot, even if it is not financially successful. You learned a lot. Now I'm open to questions. I think overshot some time, but yeah, we still have 10-15 minutes.
Yeah. So since the session is running a little late, we'll extend the session for till 11:15. So the floor is open for the Q&A, everyone. So let me start with the first question, Shailendra. The question is that when you move from, say, travel, Make My Trip, to another company, etc., and other companies, you started with Make My Trip, which was like one of the initial earliest product companies.
Yeah.
How has product management evolved over the last 10 years? You've seen the entire decade. Has there been significant changes in the way product management is being practiced now in India?
Yeah, I think couple of things. Two dimensions actually. One is because the product management itself has become more and more complex, complicated. We have started creating finer roles within product management. That is one change which I'm noticing. I actually did a podcast on this also some time back, which is it's not just product management. There are now 5-7 different roles within product management itself. Like you will talk about a growth product manager now. There are companies who talk about technical product managers, strategic product managers. The companies who will talk about business or revenue PMs, because now people have started to realize and come to terms that it's a huge role in its entirety. When we were working at MMT, we were like actual mini CEOs, and revenue, UX, technology, operations, marketing. You are like the central node, and they also MakeMyTrip also eventually down the line bifurcated this role into more like revenue category sort of PMs, and the other ones were like pure technology sort of PMs. And even in other organizations like Google, etc., they are more focused on technology aspect of it, less on the evangelization or growth of it. There you have growth product managers or product marketing managers, PMMs, who would market those. And those things like that, the maturity of the role, I would say, is coming in India also. And people are realizing that if it is becoming too much, you break it down into smaller roles. And for all the people on in this panel also, I would request that you identify what is your niche and what is your key skill set. The people who are very hands-on with revenue, operations, strategy, they need to move to that kind of role. Where the other people who are more passionate about technology, UX, etc., they can move to a different kind of role, because not many companies nowadays are offering everything together. So that is one area. The second bit, I think, is stuff on the customer empathy, user research kind of things. Earlier, it was not well understood. I don't know if it is understood well enough right now also, but now at least there is this growing understanding that understanding user, doing proper user research, customer interactions are also very, very important. Earlier, people were like refraining from putting, because it also requires a lot of effort and money to put it. But now at least people are fine with you, because even if you're talking to 100 users and you get one insight, it can actually make sure that all your effort in that is well justified.
Yeah,
So those.
to add to that, this is a very good point. You would know that companies like Microsoft typically in India hire for technical product
Yeah.
managers. Very lately, they have started hiring for a role, very interesting role called customer product manager,
Yeah.
in which all you're doing is what you just mentioned, just interacting with customers and then taking those feedback and putting user research basically and taking it to actual product managers. So the customer product managers acts as the interface, because as you mentioned, a lot of time product managers are on that that we need to deliver fast, and they don't get that time to interact with customers as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So second question is, Shailendra, to you is that, can you talk a little bit about Spinny, where the journey is right now? Where are you in the journey? And how does the product org looks like in a medium-sized company, which is getting built, but still not too big, still not too like a startup. So somewhere in between, mid-sized company, I would say. So how does product org look like in this kind of setup?
Typically, in these companies, in a slightly smaller kind of companies, you typically have a business organization who will be focused on the P&L. So we, as product managers, while I have in my past also handled P&L sort of responsibilities, like in my KRA, for example, like MMT, I had an X crore revenue target. You have to achieve. Those things are not there. But what you are accountable for are the product metrics that from a funnel perspective. So visit to lead to conversion on each of those steps. How do you NPS of the customers? So you, as a product team, you're responsible for making sure the NPS is taken care of. So eventually the structure also becomes like that you typically have a customer facing product. And most of the times when you see a product which is a B2C product, it is only 20% of what the overall product that the gamut is, because most of the products are actually internal tools. A lot of these are B2B sort of products, and like that. So typically the structure is built like there are people who are more focused on customer facing products. There are a lot of people who are very hands-on with operations, CRM, and a lot of those things. They are actually managing the back-end pieces. And then there are one layer which is now also one increasing trend which I have observed is platform thinking, right? So a lot of teams are now focusing on building platform. For example, communication is a platform. It is not just limited to a B2B or B2C or one particular area. Payment is a platform. You have to build payment as a solution. Nowadays, chatbot or bot is as a platform. We, for example, at Spinny, catalog is a platform. Cataloging is basically maintaining the cars as an SKU, etc. And that thinking is a very different kind of thinking. That is all the product management, but it requires some bit of deeper understanding of technology. But you think as a platform. You may not be as the customer empathy or understanding or UX might not be as important, as your subject matter expertise in that area is important. So we typically, in most of the companies I've seen, even at Max Life and Spinny and others, where we've seen these typically broad 2 3 areas, that you have a typically a customer facing unit, then you have an internal tools unit, and then you also have a platform which cuts across all the different parts, and then you have a head of product, etc., who's managing everything together.
Right. One question that is coming is that when you are switching between companies, right, and it takes time for you to understand another company's business when you are in a totally new industry, etc. And applying first principles is something which one wants to do, but at the same time you have time pressure to deliver and actually start working. So how do you overcome that hurdle wherein you are, because all of this takes time to think about, etc., right? But people want you to deliver very
Yeah.
fast, right? What are you building, etc. And sometimes then you start focusing on the shipping part rather than the building and thinking part, which is actually why product managers are required in the first place. So how do you overcome that hurdle where you're expected to deliver products very fast, but at the same time you want to kind of think it from a totally new lens?
Yeah. See, I can give you a theoretically correct answer and a practical one. I'll give you a practical one. The practical one is, you are right. You will never be given infinite time to just keep thinking about the customer, or doing by first principle. What you have to do proactively is set the expectations when you're joining an organization. Say that, what is my 30-day plan and what is my 90-day plan. Uh, in first 30 days, I don't think any company, and I may be wrong, but I haven't seen which is expecting you to start delivering in first 30 days. And those first 30 days, you set yourself up saying, first 30 days, I just want to immerse myself into this organization. The way to do it is you become a customer. For example, if I am joining Spinny, what I did was I actually literally sold a car which I had to Spinny, and I actually literally bought a car till the prime when, because I did not have to buy, but I went through the entire process as a customer. The call center guys or anybody did not have any idea that I was a user. I was not a user. I was like a customer. I was like an employee. You go through the entire thing. You make very copious notes. You create all those findings as a customer journey. You put down everything. Also, towards the end of the month, you start sitting in the call center, or if you have, or just going through the Google Analytics reports and everything. Listening to the call recordings is a very, 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 very useful thing which I've observed. So you start immersing yourself into understanding what actually is happening there without actually being an employee. The first 30 days, you can say that I'm not an employee. I am getting paid, but right now I'm acting as a user. First 30 days. I'm very sure I'm not even talking about Google or very big companies, but even a small size company, 30 days are good enough for you to get a hang of what the customer goes through when they are using your product. And you start making those notes. You like note it down everything bit by bit, so that after 3 months, when you are colored by the company, you can go back to those notes and you say, no, what I am starting to think is not right, because now I'm getting colored by and influenced by the organization. What I wrote back 2 months back was the correct thing. That's like the Bible, because that you had observed when you were a user, and over time you stop becoming a user, start becoming an employee, and you start आप बोलोगे कि हाँ ठीक है, ये तो होता ही है because यहाँ पे तो ये issue चल रहा है. You start empathizing that because you are now part of the problem, right? But when you were a user, you were very critical of any small glitch. So you make notes, and my effort is that I go back to those notes every month, and keep every once and now, to make sure if those things are still there or those have been solved. If there is a very rational, very logical thing to why that glitch occurred, then obviously, like, because you have to balance, like those Venn diagram for a product manager, like the very popular one, business, technology, and user, right? You cannot just overcompensate on users and say कि user को तो सब कुछ free में ही चाहिए, like you start selling it for free. That is not the case, right? So you have to balance it out between business and user. But as long as you can satisfy yourself, rationalize yourself that this is making sense, you move ahead. So I think that 30-day, 90-day plan has worked for me. The first 30 days, I don't even take up a active project. I just, and maybe that's the leverage I have, or maybe by the virtue of the designation I have. But I'm sure most of the product managers, even if at an entry level, if they specify this with their management, if their manager, they will invariably give this time to them, and that's a
Sure.
good enough time.
No, I think this setting the right expectations, I think a lot of time is very important, right? Which I think if you do it well, you are clear about your mandate for the first 90 days in walking into a new job. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Shubhashish has a question, Shailendra, how do you see the role of product management versus now that you are VP of product management? What are the difference between these two things? Apart from the fact that you have to lead a team, etc., do you see fundamentally from a thought process point of view, is there any difference?
A lot, I would say. And in fact, I would go to the extent of saying not every product manager who is a very good product manager, like an individual contributor, can become a head of product also, and should even aspire to become, because those two things are slightly different. Almost very difficult, very different rather, because if you are in a VP kind of role or head of product kind of role, your expectation is not just to manage a product on your own. Invariably you don't end up managing, you end up managing people or streams of work. So you work around strategizing, you work around keeping your team motivated, you work around aligning with the business and other functions becomes much more important. And how do you rally the vision of the organization to the product managers becomes far more important than actually working on a product itself, because that you have done. But there is also fine line between, because no two product managers will behave the same. And if you start putting yourself in the shoes of your team member, you might start micromanaging that, this has to be done that way. That might be correct for you, that might not be correct for the other person. He might do it very differently. And so what I do is I align ourselves with the uh, I align myself with the goals, that these are the metrics and these are the goals which you have to look at, and forget about the means. That means can be anything. So
Got it.
those two goals are very different, but I would say that.
Right. So Raghavendra has a question, Shailendra, and I think this is a good question. How does applying first principle is different in B2B, right? And and especially he's saying for say 10-year-old products, and you are just a product manager, right? So basically applying first principle always is easier for green for new kind of product, because you can totally think. But something which has been going on, let's say let's say Google has a product which is going on for let's say 10 years, and now you're given that, but now you can't change a lot of things. So can you still apply first principles there? You need to put the jack on. No, not still audible.
I'm saying the network was a little flaky. Can you repeat the question once more?
Yeah. So Raghavendra has a question. How does applying first principle is different in B2B? Right. Most of the things, most of the companies that you've worked in are, let's say, B2C, but is it different in B2B? And especially for products which are established products, let's say a 10-year old product. Let's say you're a product manager in a product which is not a 0 to 1 product which you have worked in, but 1 to 10 product, right? Wherein there is already a lot of kind of market is built around that product. Now you can't change a lot of things.
Yeah.
And product managers by definition want to change things, want to build things. So how do you look at that? And firstly, how do you apply first principle? Are they different in B2B?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say if things are stabilized and these things are working fine, then the scope will be very limited, right? Because even for Magic Bricks, as I said, we did not went about recreating the website itself, because that was a running stream of revenue. Everything is done, that is still the same. You come up with a different proposition altogether, which is in parallel to what your main problem is. So when you come up with a very different channel or a very different new concept, is only when you can apply that kind of thinking, not to your main product. Because that main product, you cannot just pivot dramatically to say that, we'll just change it overnight. That cannot happen. Even for Magic Bricks, as you said, right? We were looking at alternate sources of revenue, or maybe experimenting something new. So without affecting the main thing, if there is enough from the management that they allow you to change something, that is when it can happen. It cannot happen on the main product.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that keeping the core product but adding more peripherals to that product.
And maybe at times it might happen that the peripheral becomes so big that you pivot to the other thing, but it can continue to coexist also.
All right, so are there any certain traits that a product manager has to take that, like, do you see a 0 to a 1 product manager getting a little bored in 1 to 10 kind of products, or you see that people who are 1 to 10 are generally a certain type of people?
Yeah, in my experience, I have seen that there are very few people, rather, I would say, who are good at both. And I think even as product managers, you will need to not forget product managers as individuals, as person. You need to identify yourself and tell yourself that you are which kind of a person. Are you naturally somebody who thinks about breaking things up and creating something new or fresh, or are you somebody who's like focus on tweaking it, and that itself is an art also, by the way, because if you are like, for example, I was talking to somebody, Amazon listing page, I think their funnel is kind of optimized almost 100%, right? But there also you would have hundreds of PMs working every day to keep tweaking on and most of these things, right? So, but they require different kind of skill set. One person from this group might get bored doing the other work, or the other person in this group might not even get to, or might not even have the skill set to actually flourish in the other role. These two.
Awesome. Makes sense. Shanti has one question. There's this question, Shailendra. When the product is not financially successful, what kind of consequences PM has to face? And this is a reality of a product job, all said and done. And that's why it's a high risk, high reward kind of job. That a lot of products you work very hard, you show big dreams, big plans to the management, etc. And this product will work, and you get that financial commitment, engineers, and finally it doesn't work. So then how do you deal with things, and what are the repercussions? That's what Shanti's question is.
There are no repercussions as such, but in the outset only, when you are creating this kind of product, you set the success criteria. If you set the success criteria of this kind of product, that you will get 50 crores of revenue out of this, and that is the only metric which you're going to benchmark yourself or measure yourself against, then obviously there might be repercussions.
True.
But if you say that this is a this is a POC, we want to test it out for 6 experience centers, and these are the metrics. And we did have metrics, like we had NPS, we had number of leads coming through these sources, and also had a revenue target to that. But it will not be like 80% is revenue, right? So you distribute your KRAs and put it upfront, and by that, I'm sure if everything fails, then obviously as PMC you are responsible. Then there should be repercussions, I would say, because you need to measure yourself against something, right? If not revenue, at least engagement, word of mouth, recommendations, whatever, NPS. But if everything is failing, then obviously the product is not. But at least in few of those metrics, if it is successful, if you gain enough experience, then I think there will be, you will have enough empathy from the management also to let it be.
Right. Awesome. Sundar has this question, Shailendra. What are the key focus areas, principles, thought process while creating product roadmap for a startup or a small mid-sized company? Any things that you need to take care of when you're creating these products, etc.?
You're talking about the roadmap creation bit, right?
Yeah.
So most of the times, what I've seen working well, especially in a smaller kind of organization, is aligning very well with the business. At times I've seen that you might have created something out of thin air, like in your own thinking that product should be like this, but the business or the organization might have very completely different ideas. So what we do is we have quarterly or monthly reviews with the business folks. We align that as business, where do you want to get in 2022, 2025, etc., and work backwards from a business point of view. And obviously technology and customer, those are the 3 in the Venn diagram. Those are something which are innate to you. You understand that more than anybody else. Business is something which you might not understand. If you have aligned yourself with the business and work backwards, then whatever customer is saying to you or where the industry is moving, that you obviously know. it becomes a very solid roadmap in my sense. A lot of times where people fail is not aligning the business. They're just working in a silo, saying that our customer wants this, our technology. We have to build a chatbot, world-class chatbot. Like the business doesn't even want it, or it doesn't even see a value unless you think that business doesn't understand this and you need to connect them. Then that is fine. But if they are like completely disaligned or misaligned, then there is no point working on a roadmap which only you think, or from a customer standpoint you think, or from their product managers who are driven by technology, saying that I just want to build this technology in may not be relevant for the business. So if I were to give one point, it is be aligning yourself with the business, and you will see.
Got it. And I think this is very important, especially in like large product companies. A lot of times they are working on moonshot products, that you can get, and where you are not asked for direct ROI. But here in startups, because the mission is very important, so aligning yourself to that mission product is very important as well. Yeah. One more question is from Prateek. How to switch from B2B product company to B2C product companies? And have you had any experience, Shailendra, interviewing people from B2B background, right? People who want to switch to B2C product management, and if you can talk about the changes that are required and the challenges that you see.
The biggest challenge I think which is required is that of customer empathy and customer understanding, because in B2B what is there is you have an easy accessibility to the users, because users are few, or you have a limited list of people who you can talk to, get inputs from. In B2C, on the other hand, it is all over the place, like all over the world potentially. And how do you will never get a user who will come and sit with you and tell you this is the problem. You have to deduce those problems through analytics, through interviews, etc. And if you can get this thing sorted, other parts of product management are pretty much the same. Only this bit, if whosoever has asked, if he is a B2B guy, if he can work on this skill, that how do you get better at understanding of analytics, how do you get better with customer understanding, empathy, looking at trends and making inferences out of that, then I think he's more or less sorted.
Got it. Two more questions. One question is from Nasir. How much of technical competence, and this is a question that is coming very often in the chat window, so that's why I'm picking it. How much of technical competency and technology are needed for product management roles, especially when you work on many different, in tech companies today are working on complex technologies, basically, right? So how much of that is required?
So the answer again is, as usual, it depends, because it depends from product to product. If it is a very core, like a SaaS kind of product, B2B SaaS product, like working for a CRM or something, you need to have a very deep understanding of technology. Whereas in other roles, as I briefly mentioned in the earlier answer, if it is the role is more around strategy, revenue, category, ops, you might not need a very deep understanding. I've seen product managers with limited understanding. Obviously, zero understanding is not okay, but with limited understanding, they're doing fairly well. But if your work itself is if your product itself is a technology product, for example, it's a software product which you're selling to B2B, like a CRM, then obviously, or an API, like in Google and Microsoft, it's bigger organization, you have product managers for APIs, so you need to be well versed with technology for those to happen. But for other kind of roles, you need to be little clear that if your strength is not technology, you don't interview or take up those roles which actually require
Totally. And I think this is very, very important, that identifying the right product role for you, basically. There's this interesting question from Jayanta, Shailendra. He asks, what's your biggest failure as a product manager and why did it happen?
Biggest failure as a product manager. It's an interesting question, actually. There are multiple, actually, and that's why I'm looking at biggest. It's not that I did not have failures, but I think what I learned early in my career at Make My Trip, and I won't say as a failure, but it was like a jolt for me that I was not very. I thought that data analysis or doing the grunt work is not my work. because coming from B school like ISB, very high flying, that you only want to strategize, you want to do this, that, you don't want to get your hands dirty. And that is where I got the biggest jolt in my career. And thankfully, it happened pretty early in my career and not late. And that is why I realized that you have to be pretty hands-on, because one of my like bosses actually called me at 11 in the night and told me that the conversion has fallen, and what is the reason. And I had no idea that why is it happening. And I was like, I'll speak to somebody like a data analyst to get me the data and then analyze. And he was like, no, 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 that is your job. You get it done through anybody else, but you have to be responsible for this.
Totally.
And I thought that was like a jolt. I won't say a failure, but jolt at the right time. And now I'm like, any product I would suggest anybody who's working with really deep, with hands-on with data, like even if nobody is there, you should be able to take out data, do the analysis, be on top of the RCA, that if something has gone wrong, you cannot just be saying that the conversion has fallen by 10%. And if the question is why, you cannot say I don't know. Like, it should never be a state. Is it seasonality? Is it something has gone wrong in the product? Is it customer behavior? Whatever it is, you are answerable for that, and you have to be on top of it.
This is so important, Shailendra, what you've just mentioned. And everyone, I believe this is one of the great tips today, that who's doing that data analysis is not that important, but whether you're on top of that data is very important. So does that even apply for a VP of product role, which is like a senior role right now? Because a lot of time you're handling people, but are you measuring the matrices, and how does the reporting happen when PMs are reporting to you?
Yeah. So we do have our weekly catch-ups where the structure is very simple. It's like a stand-up, right? Where every product manager comes up with a set of metrics which we have predefined. And they will just talk about the metrics, if it has fallen, gone down, gone up. And very sharply, like if there are like 10 people in my team, they will talk about for 10 minutes each. That itself will be more than an hour. And they will just sharply talk about if it has gone down, going up, and what is the rationale. So that I am always at a weekly level, at times at a daily level, aligned or and top of what are the numbers. So if I'm in part of any management discussions or something is going wrong, I cannot be saying that I'll come back to you, because I have to be on top of it. Like if my CEO is asking why is it going wrong, if it is like a very small teeny use case which I may not be aware, then obviously it's fair. But if at a large level, like if the website funnel is dropping, you cannot be found in a situation saying I'll come back to you.
Sure. Last question for the session, Shailendra. This question is from Aman. What and how Mr. Shailendra will help look at me while recruiting me as a product management manager, if I'm coming from a different industry but having great experience of previous industry, what a person should look like if he or she wants to come as a PM in a new industry. Like say if you were the recruiter and if Aman is coming or somebody else is coming from a totally new background, and they have, let's say, you have spent in different companies, so you're like last decade in different companies, so you understand what it is different. But let's say if I've spent 10 years in one company and in one industry, and I don't even know how other industries work, so how will you want to see me as a candidate? That's what Aman's question.
Industry has never been a bottleneck for me or a criteria which is a rejection criteria. In fact, I would rather prefer people who are coming from different industries, because they can bring in that fresh perspective into this. So that is never a criteria. What I look at are more around learnability, that if a person has maybe switched or worked in different companies, but he has learned, his knack of learning or picking up things faster. Knowing about an industry or a role is only relevant when I'm hiring for a very niche role. For example, if I'm hiring for payments, I would rather want that person to have some background in payment, because we can leverage. Or if I'm hiring for insurance or a vast product, I would rather have that person have some experience. But for anything else, I would rather not have that person from this. Like at Max Live, I had this rule that I will never have somebody who has an insurance background.
Okay.
Because they think like in a certain direction.
Totally.
And I want to break it. Even at used car, like it's a very small industry anyways, you don't have many product manager, but like if somebody from a Car Dekho or Cars 24 is coming, it's not that they will get an undue advantage over anybody else. So for like Aman was that, right? So you can be rest assured, knowledge of an industry will help, but not having a knowledge will definitely not going to be a negative mark.
Sure. With this, we'll wind up the session with one bonus question, Shailendra, and then there are a lot of questions still coming in, everyone. My apologies if you have not been able to take the question, since we are already stretched for time. We will take all of these questions in the next sessions. Is everyone with me on this? So please do not feel bad that if your question has not been answered. And a lot of the questions that you are asking, everyone will get answered in the forthcoming session. So don't worry about that, right? So one last question is from Shriram Shailendra. As a product manager, do we get to decide how small or big slice of work we own on a product, or is it fully decided by business or by VP of product since they pay the paychecks? Your voice is not audible. You need to put the jack.
Today.
Yeah.
So I think it is both. The person's capacity caliber to pick up more things. Like if somebody is not able to manage something which he's doing, and if he asks for something more, obviously I will not allow him to pick up those things. At the same time, I always encourage people to stretch themselves. Like you should always be working at a 110% kind of capacity. That you always slightly stretch that. You're not just sitting idle. I don't have any work. At the same time, you don't have too much on your plate so that you're not able to go deep. So it's decided by both. There are times when product managers come to me and say that they're getting bored or they have more bandwidth, and I look at it as a positive thing that okay. And if I believe that that person has the capacity, I give him say more work. But at the same time, if he's not able to do a good job because he's not getting the role completely, he's just looking at it very very thinly on the top, and if he's not going deep, he's like मैंने ये तो कर लिया है, मेरे पास बहुत time है, but he's not going deep. I would rather ask him to actually go deep before picking up few more things. So it works both ways.
Sure. Awesome. So with this, let's wrap up the session. So Shailendra, if people want to reach out to you, how do they do that? And do you have openings in Spinny right now? And what kind of people should be reaching out to you for what?
We do have, I'm just putting my email ID over here. I don't know if it will go to everybody or only to you, but you can relay it back.
Sure.
This is my email ID, and there are openings for interns also, for product managers also, UX also. In fact, we're hiring for UX head also. So if there are any,
have you put the email address? Okay.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, and can you stop sharing your screen? I can then. Yeah, Shailendra Jha. So everyone is Shailendra Jha at Spinny. When you're reaching out to Shailendra, just make the agenda very clear, and some basic questions. A lot of time we ask to people, but you can get the answers on the internet. So if something very specific from today's discussion that you would want to take the discussion forward, or if you're looking for internship or full-time opportunities, just reach out to Shailendra. So with this, everyone, a quick note, if you want to stay connected if you want to thank Shailendra for the talk that he did, just go on LinkedIn and you would see that we have been posting regularly all the speakers and etc. You can thank Shailendra and convey your learnings or even summarize whatever you have learned so that Shailendra also gets to see that, how much beneficial the session was. So share your feedback and learnings on #Insaid tag on LinkedIn. And with this, Shailendra, here's a thank you first of all for doing the session. Here's a quick certificate of appreciation, and really we are grateful for having you as the first speaker for this India Product Week. This is a certificate of appreciation for you, for thanking you for being here.
Thank you, Manav. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate the initiative which you guys are doing, and I'll be more than happy to contribute in any other way possible.
Thank you very much. Everyone, can we thank Shailendra in the chat window? And it was a beautiful session. And I think this has just set the right tone for the sessions that are about to come, right? Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Shailendra. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And thank you so much for being here and for joining in such large numbers.